Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all, first of all, for being here. Thank you all for being able to listen, and to everyone who's already supported Endeavor, I thank you so much. I have a number of jobs to do. I'm actually going to come up again after this segment, so please hold tight. But I've got to say a few words, and then I'm going to introduce the folks who are introducing Bill, and then I get to interview Bill, and then I get to ask you to stay for dessert, and then I come back up again with some surprises. So anyway, I just want to remark briefly on the 20 years and what it's meant for me. I first got introduced by my brother-in-law, Alex Zubiaga, to Endeavor thank you, Alex, in 2002. And Tommy Hilfiger, I don't know if Tommy is here tonight, but Tommy was nice enough to accompany me to my first Endeavor Gala and actually introduce me. And I had no idea what I was getting in for or why Alex wanted me to do this, but family is family. And then I met a whirlwind called Linda Rotenberg, and she was relentless. And at that moment in my life, I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, and thanks to the support of Tom Lee, who has been incredibly supportive not only of me but of this organization for the last 14 or 15 years, I settled my professional life at Warner Music and said to Linda, who'd been asking me to become chairman for some time, that I would be happy to do it. And it's been the greatest thing, other than my family, that's ever happened to me. And I think that Endeavor is incredibly important, and it's frankly, at least interestingly enough to me, becoming more important rather than less important. Not because it's grown larger, which it has, and my incredible congratulations to the team at Endeavor Global, the local boards, the local managing directors, and of course the entrepreneurs, who are the real people who made this expansion possible. And I just thank you all, and it's amazing that you've been able to do what we believed you could from the start. But I think Endeavor is becoming even more important because while we undertook this journey knowing that the world was suffering from significant underemployment, and we needed to find a way to inspire people to build businesses and create jobs and pay that forward, the world is actually suffering from an even greater move towards underemployment. And that is going to continue because technology has been a net unemployer and will continue to be a net unemployer for the next couple of decades at the very least. And when you think about things like a driverless car, driverless cars may or may not be important. They're certainly on their way, and nothing can hold back technology, but they will be a gigantic net unemployer. And the people they put out of work are the kinds of people who will not be able to find new work very easily. And these are people who will be out of work all over the world. And Endeavor tries, in its own way, to be one-point solution for the under and increasing unemployment in the world. And with that, I would say, and then I'll get off my soapbox, I would say that I wish we could find a way to point innovation towards solving real existential human problems in addition to solving other kinds of problems. And if all of the energy and money and brain power that is going into something like a driverless car, if all those resources were focused on how do you get more yield per acre of agriculture, how do you get more clean water, how do you clean the environment, we would start to solve these problems, and we would prove that capitalism actually can solve problems rather than create them for 98% of the world. Now, from the reaction I've gotten, I can tell there are some Democrats here. And the rest of the room are Republicans. but nevertheless, I will soldier on. And moving quickly, to introduce two extraordinary Endeavor entrepreneurs, both of whom were invested in and supported not only by Endeavor, which we didn't invest, unfortunately, in one and did invest in the other, but by General Atlantic and by Bill Ford. And that's why both Nevzat and Marcos are here to introduce Bill Ford. And I'm not going to look at the name cards, which Elena was so great to put together for me. So if I mess this up, I apologize. But Marcos Galperin started Mercadolibre about 16, 17 years ago. What was it? And it is now trading on the NASDAQ at over $10 billion of value. So it's the first decacorn that Endeavor's been involved in, and as Steve K said to us a couple of years ago, or last year, he said, the difference between a visionary and a dreamer is execution. And that's really true. And the team at Mercadolibre was an amazing team. Some have stayed, some have gone on to do other things, including one senior member who is a member of the Endeavor Global Board. It's great that Marcos is here, that he's an Endeavor supporter, and that he'll be introducing Bill, along with Nevzat, Aydin, who Endeavor Turkey, so Endeavor Argentina started 20 years ago. Endeavor Turkey, where Nevzat is from, started 10 years ago. And Nevzat was the first Turkish entrepreneur to build and sell a business in the digital age. And he sold his business, which was a home delivery service, to home delivery for over $600 million about 2 years ago. But what's remarkable about both these guys, and Nevzat did this in such a concrete way, the whole time he was building his company, there's no such thing in Turkey as stock options, equity plans. It just doesn't exist. And Nevzat took note of all the contributions that every employee had made. And when he sold the company, he took $27 million of his own money and gave that money to those employees who'd been on the journey with him. And that's why CNN called him the boss of the year. But it's the kind of values that exemplify Endeavor, which is giving it forward, creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem that rewards those who play in it, who believe in it, and who build in that ecosystem. And that ecosystem then builds cities and counties and states and countries. And that's what Endeavor is all about. So here to introduce Bill Ford is Marcos Galperin and Nevzat Aydin. Please give them a big welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Edgar, for such a kind introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Linda, for the invitation. Unfortunately, I will read, but I will try to do this as smoothly as possible. It's an honor to be at this 20th anniversary gala, both to salute Endeavor and all it has done for countries like Argentina, as well as to welcome my good friend, Bill Ford. When I first met Linda and Peter nearly 20 years ago, I could never have imagined what Endeavor would become. Endeavor started out by helping a number of entrepreneurs like me to scale our businesses from small ventures into large companies. But I never realized that ultimately Endeavor would really be about how my fellow Endeavor entrepreneurs and I would in turn give back to Endeavor and our societies by generating job and economic growth. Back in 1999, when I went through my selection panel, no one believed that entrepreneurs could reshape Argentina. Today, we realize that we will only reach our full potential through mutual support and collective effort that extends beyond building our companies. Thanks to Endeavor, the entrepreneurial community also realizes that. As a board member of Endeavor Argentina, it has been my turn to give back to a new generation. We see thousands of would-be young entrepreneurs attending our Experiencia Endeavor in Argentina events. We are bringing dozens of high-potential candidates to international selection panels with businesses ranging from e-commerce, competitors of mine as well, to edtech, to pharma, to satellites, all with a goal of creating many, many more Mercadolibre-type successes. My partners in Mercadolibre, Hernán Casá and Nico Sekasi, have embraced the same goal by helping bring much-needed capital to a range of new ventures that will transform our region. And many Endeavor entrepreneurs are now working directly with President Macri to reform the legal and regulatory environment so that it's easier for others to start and scale businesses in Argentina. Bill Ford, where is Bill Ford? I can't see him. There you are. Bill Ford is a man who believes in entrepreneurs like us. I remember visiting Bill and his team at GA's offices on Madison Avenue back in 2006. I don't know if you remember this visit, Bill. We had 7 years of accumulated losses at the time and were looking forward to our first year without burning cash, a major accomplishment in those days. I remember vividly a meeting in their main conference room where Bill, Steve Denning, Anton Levy, and a small group of at least 20 GA executives grilled us with questions trying to understand better the complexities of building an e-commerce and digital payments platform in Latin America. We eventually priced our IPO at $18 and saw in less than 180 days how our stock first climbed to 80 and then dropped to 8 at the peak of the financial crisis in early 2008. I worried our investors would abandon us, and who could blame them? But Bill and his team always kept their cool and kept us focusing on the long-term growth projects we had discussed initially. Through the ups and downs, I learned that Bill always had our best interests at heart. Bill, thank you and your team for making this Endeavor entrepreneur's dream come true.
Like Marcos just said about Argentina, communities around the world need entrepreneurs, the crazy ones, as Linda says, and an active ecosystem that supports them. Luckily, in Turkey, Endeavor has taken on a massive role in mobilizing and strengthening that ecosystem. When we were selected as Endeavor Entrepreneur in 2007, we gained a trusted partner to stand by us during a period when online marketplaces were still just a crazy idea in an environment where the world of startups and scale-ups were not yet a norm. Today, I feel part of a larger community that provides the next generation in Turkey with a sense that they are not alone. Even though times we are in are challenging, today's young innovators have role models and a network of supporters who will stand by them, mentor them, and even invest in them. I'm proud to serve on Endeavor Turkey's board, as well as to have supported Endeavor's worldwide co-investing vehicle, Endeavor Catalyst. So far, Endeavor Catalyst has invested in 5 Turkish companies, including my company, Yemeksepeti. While Endeavor's mentorship helps high-impact entrepreneurs gain momentum, roadblocks still remain. One of the biggest roadblocks in an entrepreneur's challenging journey towards success is access to global capital. And that's where Bill Ford comes into the picture. Bill is a major promoter of frontier and emerging market investing. Every time we get together, he always has new questions about Turkey, and Turkey needs more foreign investors like you, my friend. Bill sees the entrepreneur before he sees the profitability of the business model. GA supports the entrepreneur more than the process, and I'm always thankful for that. Bill's mantra is to always make sure the other side is also happy with the deal. To give an example, and a very meaningful one for me, Bill was a great supporter to us when we insisted to spare a certain amount of shares for our employees during the acquisition process. Because stock options are not a familiar concept in Turkey, it was impossible to do this earlier. Bill and his partners agreed with us that this success is not only mine or other co-founders and investors, but all of Yemeksepeti employees, and it's only just to share it with them as well. Thank you very much, Bill, on behalf of the Yemeksepeti family. The people we meet in our lives help shape our own values, attitudes, abilities, and vision. Bill is not only an ally for high-impact entrepreneurs, but he's my mentor for high-impact investments. And now, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce him as a friend. Please join me in welcoming General Atlantic CEO and tonight's guest of honor, Bill Ford.
So everyone, Bill was more comfortable with a Q&A than making a speech. So I'm gonna ask him a few questions. But what I thought I'd do is I'd start off with a little bit of a curveball for Bill, which I promised not to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. Which is your beautiful companion bride tonight told me that. You divide the world into 2 kinds of people, submarines and targets. And you prefer to remain a submarine. But tonight, unfortunately, you have to come out of hiding. And I can tell you that we have never had, as Linda said, an honoree that has had such an outpouring of affection from people all over the world. The level of support has been extraordinary. But in that support, people would call up and say, do you realize how nice this guy is? Congratulations. I won't ask you to explain the submarine and target, but you know, in addition to Nevzat and Marcos, I know you've met other Endeavor entrepreneurs. Is there anything about Endeavor entrepreneurs that strikes you as being having any particular traits or anything special about them?
Yes, but let me just start, Edgar, by first thanking you and Linda for this incredible honor. I'm really moved to be receiving it from such a great organization. So first, let me thank you, and I thank my great friends Marcos and Nevzat for such a generous introduction. They've been an incredible part of our journey at General Atlantic. So I was really wonderful if they could introduce me. Endeavor entrepreneurs are really a step ahead. They come to us with much more developed ideas and business plans, and I think it comes from the network and the mentorship that they receive. And they've also always been of a higher quality, and I think it really does come from the work that and the partnership that they form with Endeavor. Another great example of that is Adolfo Batz, who is here tonight from Clip from Mexico, who's our most recent investment in an Endeavor company, and I think Adolfo's over here somewhere. But we've really had, two of our most successful investments ever in the internet space were Yemeksepeti and Mercadolibre, and we're grateful for that. And I think Clip is on its way to being another terrific company. But again, I think they come to us with much more developed businesses and much more developed management teams.
That's great to hear. And you joined GA in 1991, and you've been CEO there for 10 years. In that period of time, how has innovation and entrepreneurship changed as you've sort of seen over the last close to 25 years?
I think in two ways. When I got started with my partner, Steve Denning, and some other colleagues, most of the entrepreneurship and innovation we were seeing was in the technology sector itself. It was in semiconductors, computer hardware, computer software, and it was really more isolated there. And I think if you look at it today, it's completely across all industries. I mean, we all hear the word disruption all the time, but it's really true. And everything is being impacted. And we see entrepreneurs in every sector, and it's why, as a firm, we've broadened out to include consumer retail investing, financial services, healthcare, as well as technology. And I think one reason that's happened is innovation cycles are just so much faster now, and the barriers to starting a company are incredibly low relative to where they were when you think about what's available. And one interesting thing I was thinking about was, think about what mobile allows for. It used to be we had invested in a U.S. company, and it would be years before we could globalize the business. We had to establish operations around the world and sales forces. Now, if you've got a great idea, you can distribute it on a mobile device almost instantaneously in 180 countries around the world. And so the barriers to creating businesses, whether it's because of Amazon Web Services, et cetera, is just so much lower now than they ever were.
And do you see any commonality in terms of what makes a great entrepreneur?
Yeah, I had a great session. It really made my day with about 40 Endeavor entrepreneurs from 5 to 6 before we got started here. And they asked me the same question. And I said there's sort of 3 things that I point to when I think about attributes. And I'm sure everybody has their own set of attributes they see in entrepreneurs. But to me, there are 3 things. First is perseverance. And I like to say that most entrepreneurs have been told somewhere along the way, this is the craziest idea, you should never do this. They've been told that 3 or 4 times, and they keep doing it. And you have to have a real spirit of perseverance. And kind of related to that, but a little different, is adaptability. Very few business plans that we've seen are executed in exactly the way they were initially conceived. Entrepreneurs really have to adapt and learn very, very quickly and change their plan. The best ones really do that. I think back to our Priceline investment, and Priceline got started with a focus on air travel, and then sort of stumbled into hotel, and then quickly realized that hotel had fundamentally much better economics, and that's what really propelled the success of the business. And I think it's that ability to adapt. And the last, which I mean goes for all of us in business, is integrity. And I say that because I don't think you can build a great organization or recruit talent without being a high integrity person, nor can you be someone who can really work with customers and convince customers, especially if you're an early stage company, that they ought to take a chance in your product or service. So I think that really matters.
Thank you. And tell me how it is that... Tell me how it is that so many growth equity firms, particularly those in Silicon Valley, by and large, and I don't want to throw the entire valley under the bus or anything, but they wait for companies to come to them. They figure that if a company gets any traction anywhere around the world, it's going to end up in the U.S. and more particularly in Silicon Valley. And given what you're doing in Mexico and you've done in Turkey and in Argentina, what's different about your approach, and why are you more outward looking?
Yeah, I think the craziest thing I ever heard from the Silicon Valley venture guys is that they wouldn't make an investment in a company they couldn't drive their car to, which was crazy. And I think we took a completely different route, and really with Steve, our founder, my partner, who started our journey towards globalizing the business. But we started because we were investing in the technology space, and we realized quickly that there were other technology entrepreneurs outside the US that were doing pretty incredible things. The first iteration was in client-server computing with SAP and a series of investments we made. Europe was actually ahead of the US in client-server computing initially. And then we were talking to many of the customers of some of our companies, and they were starting to do something called outsourcing to India. And that pulled us to India. And then the electronic supply chain moved to China. And that pulled us to China. And we started to go to these places and make investments there. And we realized that entrepreneurship, was an incredibly global phenomenon. Exactly what I never figured out. It wasn't isolated to just the U.S. or to the developed world. It was happening everywhere. And I would say it's probably been the most exciting part of my 26 years there is really being able to make investments outside the U.S. and really be a positive force for good in the emerging markets and have the courage to deploy capital in these places. But it's been wonderful.
And do you see innovation occurring? You talked about how it was mostly tech-based, but do you see any particular industry being the focus of innovation now, or do you see it, as you mentioned, across the board?
I think across the board. My partners, many of whom are here tonight, thank you guys, are sick of me saying this, but I think we are moving into the golden age of biology. I think we're going to see tremendous innovation in life sciences, and my partner Michelle here, who leads life science for us, and a convergence of data and technology in biology that's going to create some incredible breakthroughs. And we're putting a real effort on that in that area, and I think it'll become something that's we're going to see entrepreneurship, innovation, and some really exciting companies developed. The other two areas that I'm really intrigued by, and we need some great endeavor entrepreneurs to go after this, is healthcare and education are crying out for disruption and change. I mean, back to your comments, Edgar, about changing the world and changing the world for good. Those are two places where there's just not been enough progress. And whether it's access to healthcare, the cost of healthcare, access to education, cost of education, we need change. And I think we'll see entrepreneurs ultimately attack those areas and deliver new solutions. And that'll be an exciting time when it happens.
Well, I don't want to hawk on behalf of an Endeavor entrepreneur, but I just happen to have one Endeavor entrepreneur in my office this afternoon from Mexico who is determined to change the face of access to healthcare in Mexico, and he's already off to a tremendous start. So hopefully more and more of our Endeavor entrepreneurs will take that opportunity. And lastly, because you spoke about integrity, and it is clearly your whole ethos, because as I said, there's just never been such an outpouring of affection, genuinely, Bill, and nothing comes close. And I wanted to ask you, we try to instill in our Endeavor entrepreneurs the need to pay it forward, the need to create an ecosystem where not only if they become successful, but that then they take that success and invest in new entrepreneurs and begin to try to broaden their success so that success can become a greater and more permanent piece of the society. How do you think about that in your own life?
Well, I'd make two comments. I mean, one, very similar to Endeavor, so much of what we do as investors is really forge partnership with entrepreneurs and try to offer our best capability to help them reach their goals and realize their dreams. I mean, that's really what our style of investing is all about. But for I think the best way to answer the question, Edgar, is to tell a story about our founding and about General Atlantic. And we were started by a wonderful man named Chuck Feeney, who was an entrepreneur in his own right, who created a business called the Duty Free Shopper business. And he was a self-made individual, put himself through Cornell, moved to Europe, started this business, adapted 3 or 4 times till he figured out the model, and built a very, very valuable company, which was sold to Louis Vuitton ultimately. And he was our primary investor for 10 years. And he devoted the first 50 years of his life really to business and being an entrepreneur and realizing that. And he devoted the second 50 years of his life, well, not 37 years of his life, to being an incredible philanthropist. And he really pioneered the idea of giving while living. He's now given away over $8 billion to incredible range of charitable causes. And I think what he did for us was create a model around philanthropy, that we all have a responsibility at GA to give back in the not-for-profit world, in the community. And I think every one of us is involved in the not-for-profit space in some way. And I think we encourage it, but also I think we realize we can bring some of our company building skills to building great not-for-profit institutions, by being great board members, by bringing our ideas, our energy. And so that's a real core element to GA that, again, all of us participate in.
You probably won't remember this, but you and I first met, I think, on a philanthropic board. Actually, we were on the same school board.
We were, absolutely, collegiate.
About 20 years ago,
Yes,
or something
we were.
like that.
We were.
Before I let Bill go, I just want to let everybody know, because I didn't read the cue cards, and I should have, but I just wanted you, for some of you may have tasted the mezcal downstairs. That's a Endeavor entrepreneur from Casalumbre. All this imagery that you're seeing is from Argentina's Satellogic, and the chairs that we are actually sitting in were designed by one of our Filipino entrepreneurs named Kenneth Cabonpue. So
fantastic.
Thank you. Bill, I want to thank you for allowing us to honor you. It's been a great, successful night. We are coming back, and so please have some dessert, and then we've got a few nice surprises for you. But Bill, this has been a very special 20th anniversary for us, and for you to allow us to honor you and be the person you are, we're deeply grateful. So everyone, please say thank you to Bill Ford.
Thank you, Edgar. If I could just, thank you, Edgar. Amazing. Thank you. I want to just quickly say, I know we got to get moving, but I want to thank Mary Gay and my family who are here supporting me and have always been great supporters. My partners who have been, the core of much of my life and my career, thank you for being here. Thank you for being such terrific partners, and so many friends and colleagues who supported Endeavor. And I'm deeply grateful and for helping such a great cause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Gala.